Welcome everyone to the Power of Art for Social Transformation. Today we have with us Margarita Espada. Margarita Espada has traveled the world in her careers as an artist, an educator, a cultural organizer, training and physical approach to theater practice. Margarita is the founder and director of Teatro Experimental Yerba Buja, an art organization with the mission to use the arts as a tool for social change. You can visit her website, www.teatroyerbabruja.org. She is part of the faculty at the Department of Women's Studies at Stony Brook University, where she teaches theater and activism. Margarita received her Master of Fine Arts in Dramaturgy from Stony Brook University and her Bachelor of Art in Education from Puerto Rico University. She is a New York State and Puerto Rico certified theater teacher with over 30 years of experience as an educator, a performer, a playwright, an arts activist, and cultural and community organizer. Welcome, Ms. Espada.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It is my pleasure to be here with you and just to share my experience and knowledge in this process. Is all about learning with their own process. It's no formula. So today I just wanted to share my practice, where are my framework of work, and I will be talking specifically about a play that I did with Marcelo Lucero, and I put together a little presentation so that I can share, so that I will go through each one of the slides, and at the end I would like just to engage the audience to have questions and just to participate together. So can I share my screen now? Okay, so yes, so that's me. So thank you, for the introduction. This is what I did. So I'm Margarita Espada. I just came to Long Island around 20 years ago as an MFA Turner Fellow at Stony Brook University, and I just had the opportunity to really develop theater, something that was very important when I came here and I finished my degree and I decided to stay in Long Island. Was the need to create spaces in Long Island to create diversity. There was not a space for us as a Latino artist, as an artist, a scholar. I was looking around and there was a need. So because I had a theater in Puerto Rico, I decided, you know what, maybe it's time for me to do my own. If you don't have a space, you need to create your own space. And really it was a big journey to really change teatro. I created Teatro Yerba Bruja. The Yerba Bruja is a plan in Puerto Rico that grow in any circumstances. But the project in Long Island went beyond, and it's been a journey, went beyond theater. My background is theater, as you mentioned it, but really went beyond. So that the question is that do you do art for you, or you just share and go with the need of the community? So there was questions and some answers there that were important for me and later for my group. I'm still part of that conversation, how far we go and how we keep it, framing this conversation. So basically, I'm a professional theater maker. I combine personal narrative, doing research to explore topics that are important for me. So it's a connection between my personal narrative and how the personal is political too. So everything is interconnected. So I like to explore and challenge myself with different ideas according to what's going on in my life in that moment. This picture I'm sharing is my last project. It's about being an islander, exploring the concept to live in an island. It's part of the Ferry Island North Shore residency. It's a Ferry Island doing this residency. So the space not only provide an opportunity for me as an artist to be in Ferry Island, but also open the door as a people, artists that look like me to be in that space in Long Island. So I hope that the show is a work in progress. We'll be presenting next year, and I hope to invite all of you. And in this place, in this picture, I'm exploring like a movement and colors. So I'm creating an art piece with my body. And later, we had this narrative about how it's a stroke and movement. So the connection to the land, the connection to the color, the connection with my own emotions and ideas about being from an island. I'm from Puerto Rico, and I'm also in Long Island, so this is part of my exploration. I also create this conversation with the community through performing art, autobiography, public art festival, and parades. So everything is really connected to the community. So as a performing art and my theater background, I try to listen to the community and see in which way we can really take and intervene all these public spaces and public conversations. And my project integrate art and also focus in cultural organizing. That was something that I did in Puerto Rico. I was not so aware that I was doing that because I went to study theater, former theater background with classic and all the traditional theater that you can learn. But in 1989, I have an opportunity to represent Puerto Rico in Cuba at an international school of the UNESCO. And that for me was a great opportunity because I saw all the different artists for different part of the planet, basically, to share experiences. And I always knew that I love theater, but there was something missing when I was doing traditional theater. It was a piece that was like, I was not totally engaged. So I always had this in my mind, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that I don't want to do this theater. But I was not sure. So I don't want to do classic. I don't want to do traditional theater, but I don't know what is my path. And that was okay. So that took me to a different journey to explore with different artists and with different master and keep learning and doing researchers in other style. So as a need of creating my own space, about knocking doors and try to see where I can fit into my art, being a part of this new community in Long Island. So I create Teatro Yerba Bruja, which is the mission is to create, social change through the art and but really engaging in civic conversations. So the program go not only to create social change through specific issues about gender, race, but also we are dealing with economic development. We work with the town. We wanted to be sure the public spaces are used for the art and for the communities, because I strongly believe that art should be a constitutional right. I believe that art should be part of everyone living experience as being a better person. There should be a government responsibility to be sure that people have access to the art. So for us, it's very important to have this conversation, especially in our communities in Long Island, where I am based on Central Islip, Bay Shore, and Brentwood. Something I saw when I moved here, and still until today, sadly, that it was a missing of galleries, performing spaces, places for people to enjoy art. But when I drive, I was driving like 2 minutes from my house, and I went to the main street, there was gallery, there was art spaces. Like, oh, something is missing. Why our communities don't have the same opportunities when you have all these artists living in our communities? We're dealing with our communities are based on Latino and Black communities. So it's also a lot of historical issues in Long Island. We know it's totally segregated. It's totally a lot of disparities. So we decided it was so important to create our spaces and take out our people and create art. This picture is for the downtown festival in Central Islip. And they was like bring our community together and bring the point that we want our art center. We want also to enjoy art and to showcase who we are, because art also bring money, economic development, and a better structure. And one of my theoretical framework is Theater Audio Press by Augusto Boar. He was a Brazilian theater director, and I have an opportunity to study with him a couple of times, but especially in my 90s when I was a student at Puerto Rico University. And basically, he is inspired in Pablo Freire, Education of the Oppressed. And the main concept is the philosophy approach is that the theater can be used to create education and to create a conversation and to show people that you can reimagine a better society through theater. Because what theater do? Theater create, on stage, a story full of imagination. No? So if we use theater to create through games, through different dramaturgies, and we create a play where people can see their own oppression. So later, as people can have a conversation to see their own oppression on stage, and with that come the possibility to change that theater expression, change the theatrical story, creating the possibility to reimagine a new society. That's a long process and take, is a way to do it. That's the system, Theater of the Press. It's a global movement. And it's through games, creating a sense of community, a sense of belonging, where people feel comfortable enough to share the stories and comfortable enough to put themselves on stage, and later to really open that their own experience to create that conversation with communities. It's very powerful. It's not a magic solution with this kind of theater. And it's never a magic solution. So when you work with community, first you need to respect your own community, but also for them to really think, and just only with the opportunity for the community or for us to think about a possible solution, or just for their realization to understand that I'm oppressed. Because the issue is like sometimes we are so oppressed that we don't realize that we are oppressed because we don't understand the system. We are, everything's like that, life is like that. So the first and education is key for that reason. No? So we are working around oppressors, community are working around oppressed, and they don't realize that they're being oppressed by a system because they don't understand that we live in a system as a basic conversation that can be. So through games, through all the theater structural technique, they can learn that. And with that, build that conversation. So I wanted just to talk, being very specific about the play that I created, about the play What Killed Marcelo Lucero. So Marcelo Lucero was an immigrant that was killed in November 2008 by a group against a teenager. And basically the story that he was walking by the train station, and so this bunch of teenagers was hanging out, and they decided just to have fun with them and start attacking them. So Marcelo Lucero really, decided to defend himself. And one of the high school, they were high school students from Patchogue, met for school, decided, they wanted to fight, and they killed him. But that was not an isolated case. So what happened is during that time, we had politicians, Steve Levis was our county executive in that time, that was creating anti-immigrant law. So there was a lot of immigrant sentiment around. And the government was using the immigrant issue to really campaign and to really elevate their own propaganda as the way to become popular. So what is the problem with that? The people really believe in politicians. Politicians are the one to represent us. They are the one in power. So when you have people in directing, you have legislators, or you have the executive of this county talking and passing laws and proposing all these anti-immigrant laws and proposals. So that give some part of the community the power to think that's okay. That if they are doing it, why not? Hey, I can do it too. So the other issue that with that in climate of hate there was also an issue with the police. So or some of these immigrants, in majority of these cases, they're undocumented. It's very a fragile community. And so when they were reported the cases to the police in Suffolk County, so the police were like, well, you know, that's okay, you're undocumented, you shouldn't do that. So the police also, as a part of the government system, was also supporting and perpetuating this anti-immigrant climate of hate that we had in Long Island. On top of that, the immigrant communities, basically, especially the male immigrants, they were like really being abused to the stream. The police was stopping them. There was a challenge not having the driver license. So there was also a way to get money from them. And they were not allowed to open bank accounts. So they are like walking, they get paid cash. So walking, they used to call the walking ATM. Basically, they know they're undocumented. They are not allowed to open a bank account. The police is not protecting them. The opposite, the police is stopping them to give it some tickets so they can pay to the government money. So very easy target. So that create the climate for this hate crime. There was a lot of hate crime during that time. And I would say that with the kill of Marcelo Lucero was the moment that really got to the stream and become a public conversation about that situation in Suffolk counties. It still lives that the politician in that time was using the anti-immigrant campaign in national level. He was talking about Fox Channel, there was a whole issue about immigrants. So we were like, front of the conversation. So when the kill of Marcelo Lucero brought to the light exactly the horrible situation that was happening here. So for me as a Latina woman, that was very painful and a great learning experience, because you can be an activist, you can be, an educator, theater practitioners, you can read, you can study all about hate crime, but when it happens with your community, the pain is different. Because they can be my brother, me, my sister, they become so real and you get very scared. So that was the main sentiment of the community. It was shock, we don't know what to do. It was a lot of emotions and anger, sadness, because remember, hate crime is a desire of one part of the society to erase another part of the society. So it's not a personal, I'm not killing you because I know you personally and I decide to kill you, because I have an issue with you personally. It's a desire to really kill and eliminate, at this part of the society, in this case, the Latino community. They decided to eliminate the Latino community. And the report of that issue was that there was a lot of hate crime. The same day that Marcelo was killed, there was a lot of hate crime. That basically the same day, this bunch of teenagers was having fun in Patchogue around attacking people until they found, Marcelo Lucero and his friends. And, Marcelo was trying to defend himself, and the result was death for him, because you are not supposed to, to defend yourself. The other people, they're so afraid. So there was in silence, the whole thing, people went to the hospital, there was very bad. So for me, my first response was like, wow, beyond my painful situation, say, I need to do something. I need to do something with this. Like, there was beyond, like, I cannot hold that in my bone, my spirit, my blood. How? So that's what I do. I do theater. So I decided to do a research based on, all the stories. And I was also working, I was teaching at Stony Brook with my dramaturgy MFA program. So I invited some of my students to be part of my projects. And I decided to do a play. So let's do a play where we can really see what happened. Actually, on one way, also a way for me also to know, to try to understand. Because that's also a way that when I do my art, I do the art to have a conversation, to entertain, but also to try for me to understand myself and to understand the situation. So that we did that. So basically the process for with the research. So let's exactly see how we went to interviewing different people. There was like survivors of hate crime. I went to I tried to sit with the family of the Marcelo Lucero family and my community, but also I went to the other side because for me, you know, what killed Marcelo Lucero? What are the social and political reasons behind hate crime? So I really needed to experience both sides, and it's so important when we're doing this activist work. You know, it's a thin line, and it's hard because our emotions are driving us, but also we need to try to be objective to understand the other side. We wanted to have a conversation later. We wanted to, you know, in some way try to be objective. So I went, I saw, you know, with the grandma, with the mother, the, you know, kid with the killers, you know, basically I was also sitting in that side. So I was taking sides, sitting one day in this part of the in court, another way, you know, day I was with other group. And so after that, we created the theater lab. So a theater lab is a moment when you really explore all your materials and through games, through different explorations. So I wanted to play with the stories and I invited immigrants. I needed my cast, not my community. So I put an ad in a Spanish newspapers that I wanted to create, you know, a theater play based on these issues. So, you know, so some people came, and so it was interesting that we had this cast of undocumented immigrants and Stony Brook University MFA program. So that was great because during the games and exploration for the student was so important to understand the value of working with communities, and for the community members to also, they wanted to share the story. They wanted to have a moment to have power to share that. And that's what theater do. You know, that's what art do, is give us a platform and power to give that community that voice and bring visibility to the issue. So that we went to this process, and it was a very hard process, and process that in some, you know, for me as a director, I really needed to be very careful and use all my theory and all my spirit to manage. First, the different in languages, Spanish and English, the no bilingual, you know, the Stony Brook student, also American, you know, student, of some of the participants, they were speaking only English, and the immigrant population only Spanish. So there was the beauty of what theater can do. We play different games, but at the same time, we switch the role. So sometimes, so what we did, we explore all these stories, and I wanted to put on stage the real hate crime events. You know, I don't want it to talk about it. I wanted to really graphically show the attack and the political statement. And, you know, I wrote the play, but to be honest, I feel that I just put together the story. You know, yes, I use all my dramaturgy skill to put it in shape, but the play was based on real events. So we switched the characters. It was interesting and very powerful process, because also in the process of creating a play for the community, you also transform yourself. You know, the members of the theater company we were into the own process of liberation, through their own process to understand oppression and privilege, and, you know, how we can really change, be a part of the solution. And from that, after all this improvisation, we went to the next stage, which is rehearsal process, where you really pick the scenes and you decide how the dramaturgy will be in place and how that will be later performed. And during the performance time, the show ran for around 4 years. We performed in all different universities, Hofstra, Stony Brook, Adelphi, NYU, community, the churches, to create that civic conversation. So the show was not putting on stage really to put in for entertain. So the play was to create civic dialogue. And that was very, very important in that moment to have key partners. Because one of my experience with my first show was Stony Brook was interesting, that I have all the show, oh my God, everything was so great. And when there was the moment to have this dialogue with the audience, I realized that that play was bigger than me. That there was so much conversation, so much pain and so much energy there that I needed to ask for partnership. So that's I built this civic engagement team, connecting through, the labor union members, lawyers, immigration lawyers, and people from the face group, how we can talk about immigration for different perspectives, because the play was covering all this conversation. Oh, the immigrants are taking our jobs. Oh, oh, I like my neighbor, but this is a stranger. So how, for the faith point of view, you need to work on your stranger. You are supposed to be a person of faith, so how that conversation can go into this faith organization. And or in college, how you educate this new professional to understand the real issue. So yes, it was about bringing and opening new dialogues into the conversation, and also transform. So the transformation from the play to the audience, to the community was amazing, because the way that the conversation was managed. That scene, for example, is one of the attack at the scene over here. Basically, the play had two sides, the immigrant family and the American family. So there are two versions, two perspectives or life looking at each other, and no one is talking. Because that was another issue. We are talking, yes, I'm pro-immigrant, oh, I'm immigrant, but we really know what, everyone is screaming and no one is talking. So what I did was I created this parallel narrative that in some point they clash. And so at the end is no end, because there was no end of this issue. So I decided as a director to stop the play. I said, okay, stop it. People are screaming, stop. And I asked the audience, do you have a solution? Do you want it to really, engage with us? And that was the moment where the play we switched the play to a forum theater. So where people had an opportunity to talk, come to the stage. And in the first stage, people were like coming to the stage and changing, character position. Later, the conversation was very intense, that it was more about creating the civic conversation with the community. And that's the moment when I stopped the play. I said, it's not a play, both sides is like, we're fighting, si se puede, yeah, we can, stop the, hey, immigrant, they are not welcome here, so let's stop the play. Let's talk. So the play was really successful. The third stage that I learned in my process was, okay, great, I had this partnership. Like now we have my lawyers, I have my, my unions leader, my face group. But I was like thinking, what happened after the play? So we are impacting a community, we are creating a dialogue, we're creating a conversation, but now we're out of the community. What happened after? What is our responsibility when you work with a community? And just what happened when you go? So we create also in collaboration with different organizations, call of action, and a different way to really engage communities and the grassroots organization that work with the community. So a key is when you work in project like that, it's just you visit the community, but you need to have a leader from that community, the other one that engage that community. And you also have different grassroots organizations working in your own issue to be sure where they are taking action. So change is real. It's not that we're having a conversation, okay, that was great, oh my God, it's so sad, people have emotion, but done. No, you wanted to create that possibility that keep going after your production moves to a different community. So that was amazing in a way that we was later organizing, and there was a great experience for me getting trained with different partners, with different unions, with different really community organizers. So I think that moment also my practice really was enhanced, connecting both universities. Yes, I was a cultural organizer because I was organizing culture, but also to learn strategies to organize community was key to work in collaboration. And it was amazing in a way. We create changes. The police department, it created different, there was a lawsuit, it being a New York Times picked the piece, Associated Press got a big prize, Suffolk County, so Newsday. So the conversation went beyond, nationally also, because how a small theater was so cute, how a small theater company can create such a conversation where people in power are feeling. That's the power of the art. You cannot fight art, because our image is language. So we can be talking and have all this argument. When you see image, it's a different level of language that we can communicate, and that was what we did. So basically, it was about giving a voice to our immigrant community and really put outside, put it for everyone to see and to talk about what happened in the community as the play was all real. I was not creating new scenes. The play was What Killed Marcelo Lucero. I was not talking about Marcelo Lucero's personal life that was out. I was talking at different scenes until the culmination of his death that create this hate crime. That's an important to make that difference. If I bring Marcelo Lucero life that become personal. Yes, I do respect Marcelo life and of course, and the pain with us. But we wanted to go beyond as a hate crime. So he became a symbol of victim of hate crime for us. I think this is such a, wanted to show a little documentary.
When we saw the news, I was in shock. You always read about hate crime, but when this can be your brother, or this can be your son, so it's awake you in a different way.
They played What Killed Marcelo Lucero was my response as an artist to this big debate.
Necesitamos trabajar. Tenemos familia que mantener. Yeah!
Put the community on stage and tell people the story. And I think this is the message. You're an artist or you're a community organizer. How something so simple can be so powerful.
Go! It's simply about the rule of law. And I promise to crack down on illegal immigrants.
Woo! Yeah, come on.
Look, a baby beaner.
You don't belong here. Get that in your mind.
The play become a tool for community organizer on people that are working with immigration issues.
¿Te duele? Sí.
You can use the art to mobilize people.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the police.
They were probably just some kids in the neighborhood, up to no good, having fun. It really hurts me to say this, but none of this would have happened if you were back in your own country.
People are not talking. So what I do, I stop the play.
Stop! Pare! This is not resolving any problem in Long Island. We need to get together to the dialogue.
And I tell the audience, I don't have an end.
I don't have an end.
So you have something, how we can resolve this. I want you to help us with this.
What we can do to really bring together Long Island and live as a big community. Somebody have a suggestion?
When we have elected officials saying illegal, 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 those people cease to be human in the eyes of some. And it's easy to commit atrocity.
If you are this unknown entity, then I can treat you any way I want to. But if I can know you by name, I have a hard time fighting with you.
I'd just like to say our country has a serious history in this regard. And it is not going to be something that's going to be solved overnight.
What I call for is acceptance and having real dialogue where we can talk about our differences is probably the fastest way that we can get to accept each other.
We can have difference, but we should have the capacity to sit in front of each other and talk.
So some of the challenges, that I wanted to share, that is not an easy process, can be look easy, when we're talking theory about creating art for change, especially some of the challenges for me working in a story that is in my own community. It was a big challenge for me, it's because it's your own people. So that is a big challenge, how you manage that, your personal emotions and try to be objective. Also, to create a narrative that can look in a neutral way, but obviously you have your own agenda, it's about justice. But at the same time, you need to present in a way that need to create a space for the other side to think. Because you wanted to change people perspective. So, I show one of the strategy was to show the play in community with anti-immigrant, or they have some issues. So there was the challenge, knowing that we were performing in a community, they were not totally welcome. Obviously, to work in a community that's totally extreme, I don't think it's also makes a lot of sense. So that's part of the strategy. You don't want it to go to the extreme. So you go in a center where people like, it's a possibility to change perspective. And that's part of activism. That's part of you learn when you what kind of strategy, where, not because everyone is inviting you to do the play, you are going to perform in that communities. You need to also look at the risk. For example, this play was made in Patchogue. The mayor, Pontieri, don't want the play to be shown there because the killing was there. So he wanted to keep Patchogue as his great community. But that was a challenge for me because I think I wanted to present the play there because that was exactly what the community needed. So they took some time until we managed to present. So when I went to St. Joseph College, actually, the whole college was full of police. So this perception that because we were doing the play in Patchogue, there was, like this big aggression. So, and to have police around the stage, that was something that was oppression over depression. There was a different circumstances that we know there was white supremacy on the audience. So you need to have a strategy. You need to have a plan and be prepared for what's going on. This is serious. You're really working in a real situation. So this is not a college class, or it's not a community project that we're playing around. We're talking about real consequences. But I think one of the main challenge, and there was also beautiful because people were like, oh, that was so graphic. Oh, there's so much violence. But because I don't create anything, there was testimonial event. So that was a beauty. That was real. If that's hard for you as an audience, imagine how hard it is for the immigrant that experience that every day. And that part, in the way how you manage that conversation, that is important, to have a great panel of the people that really can hold difficult conversations, difficult dialogue. And that's the key of the conversation, because it's easy for me to have my flag one side, yes, yeah, or the other side, yeah. But if we made in that place, change is possible, but it's hard. We need to have the capacity to really have difficult conversation and to facilitate that conversation. And I don't need to tell you it's a solution, but you really adding something to the possibility of change. Also, that was a big challenge for me to create this middle ground, understanding that some of the story that was putting was like hard for me, but that's necessary. You cannot go direct to one side, take one side or the other. Obviously, the story, you cannot change the story, but I needed to create, you don't want to demonize, you don't want to create a bad and good. You wanted to create, humanize both sizes because we are human. One of the big experience that I had, 2 moments, but one of the last performance, in the father of the killer wanted to see the show, the family wanted to see the show, and Patchogue, the church called me, they're coming. This is a public event. I cannot choose who is coming or no. Actually, I was like, that's amazing. Yes, but inside, well, oh my God, let's prepare, have a plan. And that what was amazing was after the show, when the play become the dialogue not becoming place, the first person to respond was the father. He raised his hand and said, oh, I wanted to talk. And he was like, well, the play was okay, but my son is a teenager, 18 years old. And, it's not fair that he got this, this year on jail, 20 years prison. He's a young kid. And so he started to justify. And another member of the audience stopped at him. He said, stop, Mr. Conroy. Your son is not a victim. The victim is a community that your son terrified. And that moment for me was like, wow, that was the beauty, the moment of the beauty, because I have 2 members of the audience just having this dialogue without us or the need of intervening, And when they asked me, my response was like, I think that we are victims, because if we live in a system that creates hate crime, I'm not happy that these kids are on jail. Yes, they have what they deserve, not doubted about it. You cannot be walking around when you kill someone and you're attacking people. But I think if we create a system that creates hate crime, we are losing here. This is not a winner. We need to do a lot as a society. And I think that's the conversation. Where are the issues in the system that we need to work on? And the other great moment for me was, I think, our last performance. The survivor of the crime went to see, and he was in a corner, and and I don't want to just put him in a spot. I was surprised he was there. And at the end of the play, he was talking. He wanted to share his story, or part of his story. That was beautiful, because also as a survivor, he had an opportunity to share their own story and to see his own story putting on stage, and to share. There's a lot of healing also there. Healing, conversation, that was very powerful. And as a director, as a cultural organizer doing this kind of work, you need to be prepared for all these possibilities. And it's experience, it's experience, it's about partnership, it's about planning, and it's about bringing everything together. It's no magic solution. It was learning. Every show was a process to debrief what happened and how we can do better. And the opportunities, an advantage, that you can give voice to your own communities, and people can trust you. If you work with a community, and you own, or with a community that really know you. But also the challenge, because you are responsible for a community. So people will be also asking you questions. So it's a thin line that also requires you to be aware. So I wanted to start talking now, and I wanted to stop my chair. So you have questions, or something that you wanted to talk specific, I'm here for you. Actually, we are lucky we have Michelle Lynch. She was one of our partners here. Maybe she wanted to share the experience as one of the unions organizer.
Hi, Margarita. It's good to see you. I enjoy all your travels around the world. I wanted to, what was interesting, Margarita brought up about, was the father of the perpetrator. And my own opinion at the time, and I still feel that way as a parent, if that was my son, I would have felt I failed him, because him and his friends, this is not the first time, this first time they hurt someone, but they were regularly going around during school nights, all hours, attacking anyone they perceived to be an immigrant and saying we're doing Bina hopping. So where are you as a parent that you don't know where your child is at night? And what was interesting, a friend that was with the father got up and said, well, you know, I'm not prejudiced. My wife is from Puerto Rico. And it kind of equates me to the person that says to a person, a Black person, that, well, you're not like those other Black people. So people don't realize that, you know, just because they identify one or two people, that they're not like the rest of them, that they don't see their own prejudices. And it was interesting because the one in Patchogue had all these police there that we were like, what's going on here? Like they expected all this trouble, and there was nothing. It was just a dialogue. But I think your art, the way you bring it in to allow a dialogue, and you could see from the one group that you showed, people are really, really interested in having that open dialogue. And they really want to have a conversation. They wanted to be allies, I would say, for the most part. That's why people are there, to have a discussion, say, how can I do better? How can I be an ally? So your artistic work that you do, bringing all this out, is really extraordinary. And it can be used in so many different stories to tell. So I want to thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
If I may take a second here, Mrs. Espada, this has been such an inspiring presentation. Thank you for all the emotions that you gave us through this talk and the way that you presented the presentation. It wasn't only, you know, like a learning experience, but it was such an emotional ride with those little slivers that we saw of your you know, theatrical work. I can just imagine the entire presentation, the power of the emotion that was present in that room. Before we continue with the questions and the comments from the audience, I would like to also mention here that next Monday at 4:45, we will continue the theatrical presentation with the Delphi Theater Department alumni and a faculty member, and they will discuss their work as artivists and speak about the collaborations and experiences that have informed their current career direction. Also, if you'd like to visit the past events from Artivism, you can go to the website that is adelphi.edu/artivism. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Artivism for Shared Humanity, or just by simply putting Artivism at Adelphi on a Google search. Also, for future reference, you will notice on our YouTube channel the recording of the presentations from past events, and that will be at Artivism for Shared Humanity on YouTube. If you would like to be a presenter or you'd like to get involved with the Artivism initiative, please email the artivism@adelphi.edu. Now, to continue with the conversation, please just unmute yourself, put a comment in.
I have a question. How prepared were you for that first performance or any thereafter for those that came just to protest? Did you expect that to that degree?
Yes, for the first performance was a Stony Brook University, just always supporting me. And I was like very into like theater, you know, with all my theory and changes. So in theory, the difference is working in your own community. You know, the emotion are different. You know, my experience, I've been doing this kind of work my whole life. And it's different when you have this level of being objective. So I was not prepared for both sides coming to really so emotional. And so the people went to stage and changed character. I was doing my Gusto Board, Theater of the Oppressed game. I realized that they was becoming like kind of game, but not real like dialogue. So was horrible for me. That people have a great time, but for me as a director, I always like to challenge myself and question, you know, what I'm doing. And that was when I really went and in collaboration with Long Island Immigrant Alliance, which Michelle was a part of that, a great mentor for that aspect of the play. I think the team they are expert in on the different topic, and we were prepared, you know, like they had the right answer, you know, that conversation, I was basically on the side, you know, I was like play, oh, word, I just did a play, you know, I play that. So I switched and let them to own the space, which is very important. So the theater become a tool. So the theater is the tool, not the main production. We know is the one moving the story, but what you want is to switch the power and how power be transformed and shifting. Very important. Because you're not about, oh, I'm the actress, I'm the director. No, you don't want that. You want it to disappear. That's the goal of an organizer, no? You don't want it to be in front of the stage. You want it to go behind. Let the leaders for that community take over. So we have different, you know, we have like planning meetings, and when people come with strained arguments. So we always have some people from my panel, especially lawyers, experts to really tag into that questions, you know.
And the logo is beautiful. The logo for the Theater of Oppressed. Do you still use that? It's beautiful.
Yes.
Very powerful.
I have a question also. In regards to like the administrative, because I know that you ran also Teatro Yerba Bruja, right? And that you have visual art exhibitions, other artwork in regards to the performing arts as well. I was thinking in regards to how to bring such a powerful performance and work like this one that you did to, let's say, a stage such as off Broadway or on Broadway, you know, because just recently they had the Americano play that touched not exactly, but isn't the same topic of immigration and a family that is here and they don't even know their status and this and that. But it takes so much work for that one to get to off Broadway. And the audience member were saying, like, how can these topics that are so important be on a stage such as a Broadway production, not off or off on Broadway? Could you share maybe some of your thoughts on how the Broadway shows could be geared towards more production with this kind of meaning?
Well, you know, first, Broadway is about business. It's a business like any other business. So it's about entertainment and investments. It's all pure capitalism. So I don't think there's a place we have a space. It's still, you know, play that you think they are very controversial. They are controversial to that one level, you know. So I think that's one of the main challenges, including me presenting this play in Long Island. That was a challenge in some communities, and they wanted to silence me. So that showed the level of oppression, the level of wanting to, you know, perpetuate what people see and what people like. The whole question about, you know, what you're really seeing. That's really is a good question. You could go off Broadway. Kind of the same. It's about, I think this kind of theater, which is the goal, is really used as a tool for activism. So it's about building the grassroots movement, you know. And I'm sure the same happened with the play go to Broadway of Broadway. You will see a lot of editing and changing perspective and what they at the end of the day just want to make money. And that's why I don't do that kind of theater, you know. That's why that was a choice that I made very early in my life. When I was studying theater, yes, I did some, you know, commercial theater, but that's a challenge because you will be no sponsors or no audience. The people don't want it to, you know, they don't want it to talk about that. The challenge is just exactly that, you know, that if we wanted to do that, but I don't think that they will allow that.
Yes, definitely. But there has to be a way of getting little by little to those levels because, as you know, in the play Americano, the audience members were saying, we need to show this to the vast majority so that people start thinking differently and having these conversations about not you and us, you know, or we and they. Is all of us one people, right? One together. And how can we share it with a vast audience, basically the masses, right? that
Yeah.
sometimes are your voters are the ones that move these legislations and without noticing the other side, because they're so entangled perhaps in the entertainment aspect, like you mentioned, of the Broadway show, that, oh yeah, I just want to go to separate myself from reality. Yes, but at the same time, other topics are being discussed in Broadway, right? Others have made it to that level. How can we make it, like you said, to humanize? It's not who's wrong and the side or the polarization, is rather how can we humanize these topics that are creating so much, uh, pain in our society.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. We just to find a way. I feel, but it's too different. I say Broadway, I don't want to talk about Broadway, but I say this other professional theater like Repertorio Español or other companies, and they get public funding through New York Council for the Arts. I see now that is becoming more, the stories are becoming more powerful about, putting our stories on stage, and the funding, they're receiving funding. So I see some changes, because to produce, is you require, resources, which is money. And I see that the conversation is changing in philanthropy, which is a big issue too. The conversation is also changing because I feel that the new generation is being a shifting in power, because also, the people they are allocating funding, the sponsors, they don't look like us. They don't understand our story, so it's hard for us to get that funding and say, oh, well, they have no money. Where no one want to give us money. So that's also the challenge. Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, the thing is, the panel, they were all volunteers. You had Sister Margaret Smythe, who's very involved with the immigrant population on the east end of Long Island. You had Dr. Luis Valenzuela, who's a social worker. In the clip that you showed, I saw Phil Ramos, who's our assemblyman on Long Island. And you had many other people that were volunteers. Myself, I worked for 1199 SEIU. But, most of the people, they want an open and honest dialogue. And the one thing I do remember you showing the play at the Catholic Church, because the one of the men that was involved on the committee was an outreach person for this Catholic church, and he was really involved in this. And a number of people got up and walked out because they didn't care for the language. But the reality is, the language, even though it's in a church, the language is the language. That was what was used. And I found it interesting. I mean, of course, the religious orders, like especially the nuns and a couple of activist priests, they're always very supportive of this, the sisters. But it was interesting how a couple got up, and a number of people got up and stormed out. But the play went on, and the dialogue happened, because it's a dialogue that's needed. I don't see it going on Broadway, even off Broadway, like you're saying, because you need so much money, and then it's so much time. And the local theater is where you're really going to hit people and have those open dialogues and conversations, whether it be in universities, UUC Hall, wherever it might be, because that's what you want. You want to hit your local communities. Especially Long Island's probably not different than other areas of the country, but I mean, there's so much animosity and just hatred amongst people, and there's no reason, because they don't know their neighbors.
Yes, I have to agree. I think it's more effective if it's local. In a church hall, in a university, in a community center, and there are many, and something that could make its rounds in these communities inside, on Long Island and off Long Island as well.
Yes,
yeah, and I just want to, I'm sorry, I just want to say too, I was reading a notice that I live in Riverhead Town, and I see that they're trying to pass a law that you won't be able to park any cars on the lawns or anything like this. And that clearly is going after the immigrant population, because there's not much parking on the street, so they park on the lawn. But I just couldn't believe reading this law that they're proposing. So again, they subtly, do things. trying to stop people from living in the neighborhoods.
And that's exactly the proposal of Augusto Boal, theater of the oppressed, is theater as a tool. So that's exactly, it's not being created to big production. You know, theater of the oppressed is a movement, globally movement, and you go too deep into the communities, because it's not only to liberate for the change of the people that are the oppressors, but also for the unoppressed. You know, if I'm oppressed, I wanted to liberate myself, you know, that I can also understand who I am and my rights as a person too. So it's interesting because with Augusto Boal, he was so popular in some point in his life. He was in prisoner, he was, you know, exiled from Bastille. He came back, he did the theater, and he became a legislator. So he created legislative theater, and they was creating a law in the theater wanted community to criticize some laws or to change the law, and they went the theater company became his team in the legislative section. That was amazing, and they was using the theater to really change the law, and that's history in Brazil. So it's really focused in on going directly into the heart of the communities to create that conversation.
Definitely, yes. But I just want to quote what you said, because if we go, you know, in this direction of community, there has to be also, you know, as we progress in this system, more of those sponsors. As of now, we're going through this phase of diversity inclusion, right? That would like to see and would like to promote this at a higher level, because like my bottom line will be what you mentioned earlier of, if we have a system that allows for these hate crimes, right? Then how do we turn down that system and make it a system of inclusion, truly inclusion and diversity, as they're all advertising and promulgating now, right? It's not just to meet quotas or to meet, you know, like, okay, we hit the little check for diversity, check for inclusion, but not truly, because sometimes all that is masqueraded, right? But how, and I'm just saying how, like in a rhetorical question for our audience members that might want to or might reach a level when you're, you know, like the CEO of a big show in Broadway. Like, think about it, like let these shows come and a night here and there to, you know, just expose the audience. And I'm talking maybe like 5 years, 10 years from now. But somehow the mentality is what has to change in what we support, in what is being shown. Because if not, this systemic oppression will continue, because the masses follow the mass media, they follow the social media, right? And if that is showing you hate, or, you know, consumerism, that's what the average person will follow. Even only like a certain percentage that will come to these productions, to these talks, will kind of start seeing the dialogue that we're trying to build in the community, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's also important to mention, I'm sure we agree, that this play was also connecting to the big picture of, you know, the lawsuit. And I think that we went, you know, we got a new supervisor, there was some changes on the police, not all is restored, but I think the connection with the play, there was promoting the situation, creating the dialogue, was connecting to the bigger picture. There was people doing lawsuits, to a federal, we went the whole federal lawsuit against the police department in Suffolk County. So, and that way you are really creating the change, because you are connecting to the bigger, largest conversation. Michelle, you wanted to mention something just to.
Yeah, because in case you're not aware, the county executive, Steve Levy, every other week he was trying to pass an anti-immigrant bill. And every other week, you know, the different organizations were out there at the county legislator office trying to shut down the bill and saying why things were bad. And, you know, we feel, you know, I mean, that was the whole thing with the play. It's because you had the leader, the county executive, talking hate and almost telling people it was okay to attack whoever they wanted to. And, you know, as a result of all of this, the Department of Justice, the police department had to meet a regular basis with a group of activists on Long Island to change the rules with the Suffolk County Police. And I believe they still have ongoing meetings going on.
So yes, totally. I think I don't want to say that my play did it, but I think the collaboration and the play was I would say a important component to create this conversation at large for different movement that we was working, because at the end we was one team working for the same issue. So the theater at the art was a component of that conversation, which is bring the issue or bring the importance of the art for social change. So be an activist, that you think I'm just doing art. No, if you connect with the biggest issue and connect your conversation in collaboration, so it's more powerful. I think we both benefit. We benefit because we're artists, we wanted to really change society, but at the same time, the activists, the people, they are changing the law, the people that are fighting, they also need that support, because it's language. They can be screaming and talking and no one listens, but you bring something colorful, you do a mural, you create something, so people paid attention to that too. So I feel that it's a combination, and that go to the main point about the, ARTIVISM, no? And that's what we do with ARTIVISM.
Yeah, I would say that, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say that the opportunity, the difference between this and a Broadway show, like say The Music Man, I haven't seen it, but I love the movie, is that it's not entertainment, it's bringing you in for an education and a dialogue. You don't get that opportunity too often to have a dialogue, to talk to people that don't look like you and maybe to get their perspective. And that's really the audiences that came, or a lot of them were people that, again, that wanted to understand, how can we be an ally? How can we help? And I would say the play was a good kickoff to really making changes in Suffolk County, because it allowed that dialogue. We've never had anything like that before. And I think your plays that anyone does in theater has that opportunity to create a dialogue from the audience to participate and really have meaningful discussions.
Yes. Thank you both for this marvelous presentation. Here in ARTIVISM, before we depart for the evening or the day, wherever you might be around the world, we ask our panelists to share one key takeaway from today's presentation. And Ms. Leche, I will also invite you to share your key takeaway. And Ms. Espada, please, you, if you'd like to start it off. One key takeaway for action for our audience members.
For audience member, we're create an art piece. You don't need to be an artist. We all are artists. So you are an artist already. So create any piece and write your story. You are your story, and your story needs to be shared with someone, with everyone. So create your own art or your own story to share. That's an important component, to share, not to stay your own little notebook, to share.
To share and to inspire.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Lynch, would you like to share your key takeaway for the audience?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to bring people together to share and tell a story. Again, everybody has their own story, and it's an opportunity to tell that story and to listen to other people and see how they feel.
That's right. And again, creating that dialogue, of course, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for this very inspiring session today. Thank you, Margarita. Thank you also, Ms. Lynch. Amazing work. I think you're very brave. Thank you to Gottesman Libraries, Teachers College, Columbia University, our sponsors, Sink for Hope, Adelphi University, to Dr. Stephanie Lake, Criminal Justice Director at Adelphi University in the Department of Sociology. Thank you, Carolina. Hope to see you all back soon. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.